Hey everybody, Michelle here from Gardening TLC. Today I'm going to share 11 native plants that thrive in my area and might just inspire your next garden addition. Native plants are so beneficial and so beautiful. Along the way today, as I share my 11 choices, I'm going to talk about how they can make your life easier in the garden and why they're so rewarding and why you even need to plant native plants. So stay tuned, come along with me. We'll talk about all the different traits that make these plants absolutely fabulous. Let the gardening adventure begin and let's check it out. So what's a native plant? Well, a native plant is a plant that has evolved naturally in a specific region over a long period of time without any human intervention. And when we say a long period of time, if you look up the textbook definition, it's before European settlement, and it means thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Native plants have adapted to the climate, the geology, and the watering hydrology of the region that they live in. The first one on my list is a Meadow Anemone. Now, all of the natives that I'm going to talk about are ones that I can buy in my area and put in my garden. That doesn't mean that you can't grow them in your area. It means that there might be a different cultivar that's suited to the zone that you live in. If you look at this map, you can see there's 3 different colors. Now, green means that it's a native and grows in these areas. Well, if you look at the map, there's some pretty northern areas up there in Canada where you find Anemone candidus growing as a native. Well, guess what? They probably do grow as a native there, but it's not the same cultivar as mine. It's a different cultivar for you because it adapted to the area that you live in. Now, the yellow signifies that the plant grows in this area, but it's pretty rare to see it. And orange means that once upon a time it grew in your area, but it no longer is a native there. Either it was removed or it was destroyed. So those are the colors on the map, and I'll explain them as we move along. But let's take a look at what a Meadow Anemone looks like. Now, some of these natives are going to say that they're deer and rabbit resistant. I'm going to qualify all of that with, I don't think anything is deer and rabbit resistant anymore. I think that deer are so adaptive to where they live, and I think it depends on so many factors as to whether or not plants are deer resistant. Now, typically, this is not one that they want to eat. Doesn't mean that they won't eat it. It just means that through observation and testing and things like that, they found that they don't really like this one. But based on how hard the winter was, what other things are there to eat, the trail that they take through your property, and is it like on the way and will they nibble at it? Maybe, I don't know. So I think that you have to do your own trial and error to find out if something is deer resistant, and or talk to your local extension office, garden centers, other gardeners in the area. What are they eating where you live? So this one is supposed to be deer and rabbit resistant, and it's got this very beautiful pure white flower on it in the spring. It's got these deeply notched or lobed leaves on it that are absolutely gorgeous, and I would call this a pure white, absolutely beautiful in the landscape. I think anemones would look really great in a prairie setting, in a woodland setting. They grow in full sun or part shade, 12 to 18 inches high, 9 to 12 inches wide. Native plants really are better adapted to the area that they live in. They've evolved over time and they want to thrive in the local conditions, including the soil type that's there, the rainfall patterns that are going on that have changed over time, and the temperature fluctuations, which have also changed over time. And they've adapted to that. So typically, they generally need less water and less fertilizer to survive, making them an excellent addition to the garden because you don't have to work so hard to get them to look beautiful. Now, this next one that we're going to look at is swamp milkweed. And as you can see, we have a new color on our map. Now, the brown being that they don't exist in those states. Yellow, again, is they kind of sort of grow there, but it's rare. Green is they're native to the area, but pink. What does pink mean? Well, pink means in that area, there is a map key that you can print. That's what I did, so I knew what the colors meant. It means that the species is noxious, and that includes the seeds. What does it mean to be noxious? So I looked it up. All right, a noxious weed is a harmful weed or injurious weed or plant, and that's what a weed is. It's any plant that is not desirable that you don't want in your garden. That's really what a weed is. But it's been designated by an agricultural or other governing authority as a plant that is harmful to agricultural or horticultural crops, natural habitats or ecosystems, or humans and livestock. So that's what it means to be noxious. Ew. So you can see in parts of Canada, yeah, can't have this plant there. If you're going to get into native plants, you need to know that they do spread. They spread by seed. A lot of them spread by rhizomes, swamp milkweed being one of them. Swamp milkweed is also a plant that the monarchs want to lay their eggs on the underside of the leaves, and then the caterpillars will emerge, eat this plant, make their chrysalis, and then make more monarchs. So if you're doing a way station, this is a great plant to put in there. It is also a problem solver. If you've got wet areas in the spring in your yard and you're trying to plant something that's going to soak up all that water and then be able to handle the dry of later in the summer, swamp milkweed can also do that. But again, remember, it's going to spread and it's pretty big. Again, 60 inches tall. So just know that. This guy is blooming in June and July, pretty pink flowers on it, and it's a really nice addition to the garden. And it's a nice native that's reliable. It comes back every year, and I think it's beautiful. Next on my list is a pale coneflower. You can see that it's native to pretty much the center part of the United States. You can see in yellow other places that it grows, but it's a little more rare. And then that light green color. Well, basically, what the light green represents is that the plant is in those states, but it is what's called adventative. And what that means is it grows there as a native, but it had help from humans getting established there. So it's not 100% a true native, but it is a native, but not really 100% true because it didn't evolve there over thousands and thousands of years. But it's thriving there now because somebody from Illinois went to Kentucky and planted it, and then it started to thrive there, and now it's there. Does that make sense? This is a fairly tall coneflower. It's going to grow in full sun. It's going to get about 2 to 3 feet tall, and it's going to have large flower heads on it with these really purple drooping petals. It also has a pretty big seed head on it, and those seed heads are excellent for songbirds to come and eat from. They do spread in the garden if the seeds fall, and then if the birds get them and drop them on the way, they can spread in other places as well. But a nice addition to like a prairie garden if you've got that going on. I think that this is easy to grow, and it is definitely a different looking coneflower as far as like those skinny droopy petals on there, but when you put a lot of them together they look pretty cool. This guy does bloom in June and July, more towards the end of June all the way through July, and they're pretty drought tolerant once you get them established, making them a great native to add to your garden. Okay, I have one I can actually say. This one is Eryngium yuccifolium, or a rattlesnake master. It actually gets its name because Native Americans used to use the roots from this plant as an antidote for rattlesnake bites, thus the name Rattlesnake Master. As you can see here, you can find this down in the South. You can find it all the way up to Illinois and Wisconsin. And then rarely in the yellow states, you will see this growing, but it can occur there as well. So let's talk about the attributes of this one, Rattlesnake Master. I love the name. Another reason to plant natives is they are the primary food source for local insects, birds, and other wildlife. They rely on them for survival and for reproduction. Now, this eryngium doesn't like to be transplanted once you get it in the ground, so you want to find the spot that you're going to put it and keep it there. This is growing in full sun, and it gets anywhere from 3 to 4 feet tall and probably 2 feet wide. It will grow in heavy clay, it's drought tolerant, and it's blooming typically between June and August. Next on my list is Helen's flower, which can pretty much be grown anywhere. There's a couple places where it was introduced and it's growing, so it's not 100% a true native. But you can see it's pretty versatile and grows in a wide range of areas. I think Helen's flower is so cheery and pretty, and it's one that you're going to plant probably in a prairie setting. It's pretty tall, getting 2 to 5 feet tall. So that's quite the range, 2 feet all the way up to 5 feet. The clump itself is probably going to get 2 feet wide, and this will freely self-seed all over the place. So I think a prairie setting is perfect for this. It's growing in full sun, and can you just picture this in a prairie setting? It's growing up through everything that's in there, and it's swaying in the breeze, those cheery yellow flowers. Oh, so pretty. It's also a great pollinator attractor, attracting bees and all those beneficial insects. Oh, what's not to love about this? It grows in so many different places as well. Now, this little sweetie's blooming a little bit later, August through October, and it's going to give you that late season wow in the garden. So if you're looking for something a little taller or something to put to the back of the border, this might be one to try. I love Liatris. It's one of my favorite flowers. I have like cultivars growing in my garden, but no natives. And so I might try to add some natives to my garden this year. This is a Prairie blazing star. And as you can see, again, very concentrated in the middle of the United States. The yellow again is it grows there, but it's rare. Green is it was introduced and grows there. Now the stripes, what does that mean? It means it might or might not be there. Now these maps haven't been updated in 10 years. I think maybe they update them every 10 years. So maybe some new maps will come out this year. But all the maps are from 2014. So back then, it was questionable as to whether or not it was in this Canadian area or not. And that's what the stripes on there mean. All right, let's take a look at this little beauty. I love this plant. This plant is a magnet for hummingbirds and butterflies. If you want to attract them to your yard, plant this in there. Now, these guys are pretty tall. I always shy away from things that I have to stake, but if I could find a way to maybe plant this with something else that's tall and they help hold each other up, this would definitely be something I would add to my garden. Now they're growing in full sun, and if you try part shade, you're going to find that they're going to lean. I think they're going to have at least 6+ hours of sun to produce and do excellent in the garden. It's got a nice strappy foliage on it, so it looks good even when it's not blooming. You can deadhead the flowers off if you want. That will slow down propagation of this. But I do know that those purple lavender flowers are absolutely stunning in the garden. I have cobalts, which is a cultivar of a gay feather or a liatris in my garden, but I don't know, I might try some natives. These guys are growing 30 to 42 inches, so that's kind of tall, but aren't they pretty? We have talked about quite a few different natives so far. And, if you plant a variety of native species in your yard, you actually create a richer, more diverse ecosystem. And that's definitely healthier for our environment. Now, you can see here, great blue lobelia is my next choice. Grows in a lot of the states, up into Canada, even a few that it's growing, but it's rare. That's the yellow, and one orange up in Maine. It used to grow there, it no longer grows there. It was either destroyed or moved. We don't know which. No longer there though. But let's take a look at it. Another great reason to plant natives in your garden is because you will have reduced maintenance. They're well suited to the local climate, and native plants often require less weeding, less pruning, and a lot less pest control. When you compare those to non natives and all the maintenance that some of them require, it's a pretty important distinction. Now, I love this blue lobelia. I think it's absolutely gorgeous in the garden. Let's talk about the specs. This is another late bloomer, and it really does have a nice clump forming habit. It's blooming more towards August and September, and it grows up on these beautiful spikes that come up above the clump. It will tolerate wet feet, it tolerates some dry soil, it'll tolerate some shade. I think, though, it probably is going to need at least 4 hours of sun, and the more sun you can give this one, the better. This guy is growing 2 to 3 feet tall and about 2 feet wide. I think if you plant this in the back of the border, it will be absolutely gorgeous. Next on my list is a Penstemon digitalis or a Foxglove Beardtongue. Again, concentrated more on the East and the Midwest, a few states where it's rare and you can still find it, and a few where it was introduced. Isn't this a pretty little plant? It looks like a penstemon with white flowers on it, and the flowers kind of have a foxglove look to it. I think it's really pretty. It is clump forming. It's going to get 2 to 4 feet high, and it is growing in full sun. Now, this one here is blooming in May through June, and typically it's found in wet areas along streams, in wet meadows, pond areas. So this one wants a lot more moisture. And so if you have that kind of an area going on, this might be one of those problem solvers for you. A compass plant is a really big plant, but it is a native in a lot of areas. You can see here that we do have one orange where it doesn't grow anymore, and a few light greens where it was introduced and grows there now, a few rare areas, which is the yellow, and then the green area, again, right in the Midwest. And I know I'm showing a lot of them in the Midwest, but that's where I live. But I'm telling you, if you go check out this website, you will find plants just for you. It's so awesome to go check that out. But for now, let's talk about the compass plant. Do you know that this thing gets over 100 inches tall? 100 inches equates to over 8 feet. That's tall. I personally have never grown a compass plant, and I'm going to read the description to you. All right, so this one says it's a very large leaves up to 18 inches long, and that they orient themselves on a north-south axis to minimize sun exposure, giving rise to the common name. It has large sunflower-like flowers on tall, stiff stems up to 100 inches. Grows easily and tolerates poor soil. It blooms July through September. And again, oh my goodness. Oh, that's huge. Okay, 2 to go. This one is Culver's root, and I have grown this one. It is actually spectacular in the garden. It also is a fairly large plant, and you can see again, this is growing on the East Coast, down the Midwest, and you can find it rarely, but find it in the yellow, and then the orange is where you can't find it anymore. And the green, like up in Maine and Nova Scotia, is where it's been moved or transplanted up there, and it's growing well. If you have a wildflower garden or a butterfly garden, I think that this is a great addition. It is a definite butterfly magnet, and it's a fairly large plant. So you would either use this as like that big statement piece in the garden, or you're going to put it on the back of the border and then layer down in front of it. It gets these beautiful white spiky flowers on it, and it's blooming from June through August. Now, the clump of foliage itself looks really good, usually gets anywhere from 2 to 3 feet tall, but then it gets the flower spikes that come up on it, and they are like 7 feet tall. Grows in full sun, is very adaptable to a lot of different soils. I've personally grown this one and I love it. I actually think I want to add this one to my garden, and I'm thinking about putting it in the mixed border that I'm going to do where the arborvitaes are that separate both my properties. So I'm thinking about using this one and that Jubilee's Cherry Chocolate Decadence, one of those two. Baptisia's over there as well, because I think I'm going to make this a really cool looking bed, and I want to attract a lot of my pollinators, the birds, the bees, all of that. So I'm thinking that this is where I might incorporate a native garden on my property. I'm pretty excited about it. Stay tuned for the design because that is coming up. My last native is going to be a grass, and I've chosen purple lovegrass. What I love about this system that you can go check out on the internet is you can type in like agagrostis and find that in the list alphabetically, and it'll take you to a bunch of other maps. And maybe it's not the spectabilis as the back part of the name, and it's something different that will grow in your state. But if you love purple lovegrass, you can find a cultivar based on the mapping that they've put together in this system for your own area. So I would highly recommend that you check it out. Now, purple lovegrass is a well-mannered clumping grass, but it does spread. So just know that if you're going to put it in the garden, it spreads by rhizomes, but it's not as thuggish as some of the other grasses out there. And it's not as vigorous of a self-sower, but it does throw its seeds around. So plant this with caution if you're going to plant this. And I know sometimes we think, oh, we'll get out there and we'll cut the seed heads off so it won't throw all over the place, but you never get them all. So if this is one that you're going to grow, I highly recommend that if you don't want it spreading around your garden, that you get out there in the spring and you get those babies pulled before the roots get established. This guy gets 18 to 24 inches wide and tall, growing in full sun, takes a lot of different soils. It's salt and drought tolerant. It will handle sandy soil, infertile soil, pretty much grows wherever you put it, but it does have to have that full sun. In August and September, it's going to get all these little purple seed heads that kind of float over the top of it, and then it gets kind of a red bronzy color in the fall. So you've been asking all along through the video, what is she talking about? What maps? What website? Well, it's this website. You're going to go to www.bonap.org, and that stands for the Biota of North America program. Sorry, I'm kind of reading it as I'm talking about it. Now, I'm going to give you the quickest way to navigate to where you can find quickly what it is that you're looking for. As I said before, all the cultivars that I showed you are kind of geared towards where I live and what grows here. But you can certainly find things that grow where you live, whether it's California, it's Florida, Louisiana, or maybe you're in North Dakota or you're in the desert. You're going to be able to find the cultivars that work for you. So when you get to the very first page, when you open it up, you're going to go kind of halfway down. There's a picture and it says North America Plant Atlas, and you're going to click on that. That's the NAPA map, and you're going to go there. Now, scroll down that, I guess you're going to call it a table of contents that you're going to see, and go to the North America Continental Species Map. Then what's going to happen is you can choose alphabetically the plant that you're looking for. Now, when you read the list, they look like they're in columns, but they're really not. They read left to right. It took me a second of searching for different names for me to figure that out. Now, what you can do is, for example, Liatris. You can go to Liatris, you can click on it, and a bunch of maps will come up of all these different species of Liatris, and then you can just scroll through the maps and look for ones that are in green, that is where you live, and then that way you can find the one that grows for you. Isn't that awesome? I love that there's so many resources out there for us to be able to research and find things that will help us be better gardeners. Good luck with that search. I hope you guys go do it and you go find some natives for your garden. Thanks for joining me today as we explored these amazing native plants and what makes them so special. Whether it's their ability to support pollinators, thrive with less maintenance, or just add beauty to your landscape, I think that these plants prove that nature really does know best. I hope you've been inspired to look into natives that work in your area. I highly recommend that you go check out that website. I linked it down below. I just think that they're a win for your garden and for the environment. If you've enjoyed this video and it's your first time here, give it a thumbs up, like it, share with your other gardener friends, and join our little community of plant lovers here. Garden Gab is where we answer questions from previous videos, and it's the third Saturday of the month. We also share viewer submission pictures, and we're looking for pictures of your garden, and we want them for the month that we're in right now. So if you're in a winter area, we want winter pictures. And some people down south have winter pictures right now. Or if you have something beautiful in your garden that you want to share, send those in. You're going to send them to this email right here, and then we will share those during Garden Gab. Now, I need to know who you are, where you live, what zone it is, and what are we looking at? And just a reminder, I will be in Madison at the Garden and Living Expo, February 7th, 8th, and 9th. I will be speaking on shade gardening, and I will be speaking on high impact, low maintenance plants. I have linked down below the website for that. There's all kinds of educational things going on there. I used to go to the show all the time just so I could go to all the educational classes. Some really excellent speakers. So I would highly recommend it if you're in the Madison, Wisconsin area to check that out one of those days that weekend. And if you want to meet up with me for coffee, drop me a line or send me an email and we'll meet up. All right, that's all I've got for today, you guys. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.